sense of detachment of that human touch. We'll be discussing that a bit later on, and of course you can share your views and your opinions when we get to that point. Also, hashtag Mandela Month, the Sister Accord Foundation, honoring individuals and organizations dedicated to uplifting and empowering their communities. Sonia Jackson Miles, founder, president and CEO of the Sister Accord Foundation, will be chatting to us then.
Hey, halala, halala, halala. Hey, halala, South Africa.
My name is Lona Temba Mhlongo. I play as a defender. When I'm at camp with Banyana, I don't have friends. I have teammates. If Banyana scored 3 goals against Ghana, I will sing Pambilingeo, Pambilingisemwe, Pambilingeo, Pambilingeo. I will sing that.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
And today marks 75 years since the Group Areas Act became law. That was 7 July 1950. And the acts assigned racial groups to different residential and business sections in urban areas. And we thought, let's just get to unpack and find out, the milestones that have been made. And on the line, I've got lawyer and social commentator Bond Mpumelelo Nyoka. Good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Bertha, and thank you for inviting me. And thank you to your producer, Ntosh Wabahlali, for inviting me. I'm in the car park of a court as I'm speaking to you now.
And thank you
After
so much.
After finishing, I'll go into court. I'm sacrificing for Ntosh.
No, you're sacrificing for all of us in the Full Circle. Thank you so much for making time. So let's maybe get to the crux of the matter. Take us through the significance and also the impact of the Group Areas Act.
All right. As you said, the Group Areas Act was formed today, 7 July 1950. It was amended in 1957, year of my birth, and then it was subsequently amended for the last time in 1966. So it's 75 years if it was to be in existence. The good thing about the Group Areas Act, although it was promulgated by the National Party government of majority, it was repealed in 1991 by the same National Party, but not the new South Africa. So it gave birth and gave death to the Group Areas Act. The Group Areas Act was part of what the National Party called the Grand Design of Separate Development, or apartheid. Group Areas Act is like one of the tentacles or legs of the octopus of apartheid. It could not be effective without the other 3 laws that I'm going to mention. The first one is the Population Registration Act, which defined groups into races and had to reside in those group areas. And then the second one was the Mixed Marriages Act. The Population Registration Act was 1950 incidental as well. Then the Mixed Marriages Act, also of 1949, where it barred people from marrying across races so that they can remain in their areas. And then the third one was the Bantu Urban Areas Consolidation Act. That act stipulated the movement and residence of Africans. Although you were in your African or black group, you had to qualify to be there. In urban areas, unless you were in Bantustan or Transkei or all the homelands, if you are in an urban area, you must not be there for more than 72 hours, number one. Number two, unless you were born in that place and you worked under the same employer for more than 10 years, you had a labor permit, etc. So there were restrictions, even those who were in urban areas, to qualify. And the onus was not on the state to prove that you were unlawful. You had to prove that your stay was lawful there. If you had to move from that area to a white area, you have a pass. Although a pass seems to be new, it was there from 1809 when it was promulgated that Khoi must have pass to go to different districts. So the Group Areas Act or apartheid laws solidified what was there already. What it meant, therefore, is that there was a massive social engineering. where groups were removed from one area to another. I'll make an example that is graphic. From 1950 to 1975, that's 25 years of the Group Areas Act, 211,000 black families were moved from the areas that were not deemed to be theirs to another areas. Then colored families, 58,000 were moved, and Indian families, 30,000 were moved, and then 142 Chinese. Between 1975 between 1950 to 1975, only 1,594 white families were moved. The clear example of the inequality or injustice of this was District 6. District 6 had 61,000 colors who resided there from 1834 and 800 whites. Guess what? Only the 61,000 colors were moved. 800,000 whites were retained there, and District 6 was declared a white area. They were moved to an area more than many kilometers away in a remote area of Cape Town, where habitation was not secured as such, and workplaces were far. That was the twin injustice of the Group Areas Act. We were put to a place where there was no infrastructure, and your places of work were very far. That caused, therefore, accidental struggle heroes, accidental activists. Nelson Mandela could have been a lawyer. Dr. Moroka would have continued as a doctor, but they had to be activists because of the injustice of the Group Areas Act, which was central to apartheid. Apartheid would not have survived without the Group Areas Act and those other accompanying laws like Mixed Marriages Act, Population Registration Act, and also the Bantu Urban Areas Consolidation Act. Even if you are a marriage officer, you could not marry people across the races. You could be charged as well, even if you have come to attend that wedding. That's how bad things were. So the Group Areas Act was very central. Yes, it got to be amended in 1966, but it remained on until 1991. The sad part about this is that after 1994, only so-called black colors moved to the white areas. Only less than 1% moved to the townships, etc., to show that the legal of Group Areas Act still exists. My wish, Bertha, is for us South Africans who are living to have our own non-racial Orania, where we can say this is a small town where black and whites are living nearer their places of employment. And then it can grow to a city, because there's no town or city that can point out to say we've moved away from the 1950 Group Areas Act. Fairfoot's dream is still there. There are still those townships living predominantly by black people or colored areas. It's still there. It's just ended in paper by virtue of being repealed in law. That's the sad situation of South Africa.
Yeah, that's what happens when you resettle people. And this is why we've got the issue of, the expropriation of land. It goes a bit deeper. But also just understanding, the Group Areas Act was amended and re-enacted twice.
Yes.
Why?
The reasons were that it was not easy to ensure that everyone is going to be resettled one go. It was piecemeal. Number one, there was the Land Act of 1913, and the Bantu Land Act and Bantu Trust and Land Act of 1936. Those two laws were to ensure that more land is given to the 13% that was given to the Africans in reserves or homelands. The homelands were complaining that we needed more land to this 13%. It was never done until 1994. The laws were changed to controlled areas because not everyone moved one go. So people were debarred to circumvent that. It was stated that you cannot acquire property as your own until you have moved to your own group. Number two, you could not acquire property until you move to your own group, and it was a penalty not to have moved by a certain time. So it was a progressive realization of the final dream of a perfect racial group areas. That is why there were amendments, because the dream was there, but practically it was not met by reality.
And
So
how?
that's why there was a necessity for those amendments. We talked about Expropriation Act. The expropriation laws were used to ensure that those groups were settled, those groups in those specified areas. Today, we are scared of using the term expropriation, but it was the main tool of the Group Areas Act, expropriation.
Yeah. So tell me, how has a democratic government dealt with the repercussions of this act after repealing it?
It was repealed by the National Party government in 1991. Soon after Codesa started, they repealed them together with all the other laws like the Morality Acts of 1957, etc. It lessened the burden of that being done by a new government after 1994. We cannot, if it's not law, we cannot force people to mix because the law is not there. So the best that you can do is to ensure that we don't repeat the same mistakes of the Group Areas Act. It could not do anything because it was no longer law. By the time we went to elections in April 1994, the Group Areas Act was no longer law. But to others, to the minds and hearts of others, it was still there. It was taboo to have a black neighbor or colored neighbor. It was, so it remained, it was off the statute books, but it was substituted to the hearts and minds of those who, were offended by the fact that they could have. Not everyone was like that. But that is why the ugly head of racism, that is why racism rears its ugly head from time to time, because you can legislate against something, but you cannot remove it from the spirit, heart, and minds of others. That is the current task that we're facing, including the government.
I'd also like to, open the platform. Lines are open. That's 086 000 2032. Or you can send us your voice notes on our WhatsApp line, which is 061 410 410 And let us know your views. Either you send a voice note, it shouldn't be more than a minute and it should be audible, or otherwise send us a text. And I'm talking to Bond Mpumelelo Nyoka, lawyer and social commentator. And we're talking about, 75 years since the Group Areas Act became law. That was on July 7, 1950. And you can only imagine when you have had to be resettled, removed from your original land of existence to somewhere else. And now, 30 years of democracy, we've had now to kind of like reconfigure and try and find out where we originally come from and where did we come from. And, without understanding your history, it's almost like having no foundation. And when you have no foundation, you can expect the worst to happen in terms of in the long term for your children, your children's children, your grandchildren. And I think this is why we grapple with a lot of issues when it comes to maybe I would say a little bit when we become a little bit xenophobic, and it may not be xenophobic, but the differences in our languages, the differences in our cultures, and the differences in the way we are. It is because we were removed to where we were originally from, and if you were to follow the track, there would have been a synergy of sorts that would then explain why we are the way we are and would have made communication a little bit better. But anyway, on the line, I do have my guest who is helping us unpack from an acts perspective and from a legal perspective where we stand at the moment. Bond, I know I've got, about a minute to go. Maybe I should ask this question so long, and we'll go for a news break, headlines, and then you can answer it later. How does it connect then to the present conversation about land?
Yeah, I just want to say that I forgot to mention something. The government has responded by the land restitution mechanism as well as compensation. Those that can be resettled are resettled. Those that cannot be resettled are given compensation. I'll make an example of the Fish River Sun in the Eastern Cape, where Sol Kesner built the casino resort there. The community of Fish River Sun got their land back. The Fish River Sun is not in operation now. It was bought by the government, etc. Those people now have opened a trust that is going to be reopened on behalf of them as some kind of resort. So those that are lucky to get their land back, well and good, but there are those that are not lucky. Money does not matter to them. There are sentimental, emotional ties to a land more than any million that you can be given as a substitute for having lost your land. But we are now, as the preamble says, we have to heal the divisions of the past, painful as it is. Unfortunately, in our DNA as South Africans, unlike Finland, we have scars, deep scars of inequality. We have to live through those scars and not deny them. And painful as it is, we must try to make the best out of the situation for our grandchildren. It's painful, but we have to move on. So those that are lucky got their lands, like also in district six, well and good, but others didn't. The compensation was not enough. And some might even question it. We cannot compare the loss with the monetary value to it. That was the answer the government made. That's the best that it could do.
Okay. We'll come back and continue with the conversation, speaking to Bond Mpumelelo Nyoka, lawyer and social commentator. It is time for headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Bertha. The news headlines. Human Settlements Minister Thembisi Melane has hailed the former Deputy President David Mabuza as a grounded political leader who had timekeeping skills. The man who pleaded guilty to being part of the murder of former ANC Youth League Secretary General Cindy Somagaqa in 2017 has been sentenced to an effective 25 years imprisonment by the Pietermaritzburg High Court in KZN today. And Kenyan police have fired tear gas and blocked roads leading to the capital, Nairobi, to prevent protesters from getting to the city centre. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
And we're talking about 75 years, today marking 75 years since the Group Areas Act became law on July 7, 1950. And on the line, I've got Bond Mpumelelo Nyoka, lawyer and social commentator, just to help us unpack. And for now, let's go to your voice notes. Let's hear your views.
Dumela Bertha and your guest. Bertha, I wish my uncle was listening. He would be nostalgic, tears would trickle down his cheeks. He was 10 when they were removed by force then from Westgate Horizon to Dobsonville. He's told me that he had one of the officials who's responsible to remove them there saying the K-weight should be put in their place. So the area, Dobsonville, was named after the administrator of the Black Natives Affairs, Mr. Dobson. Then, But there's a heritage site just a stone's throw of Westgate Shopping Mall, where there is the Blacks Cemetery. That was then Group Areas Act. Good afternoon, lovely sister. Housing from Rubbish.
Good morning. Just wish to state that even the Indians were moved out of the Durban North Riverside area, which was known for sugarcane. So they were moved out of the land that they were owning.
So those are some of your responses and your reactions. I've got a WhatsApp here that is, it's a text just before I go back to my guest. Can the gentleman put this on video or documentary, because this is a very eye-opener on our history, just the way he explained on the radio now. Thanks. That's Quintus from Gqeberha. Bond, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'm humbled by the last response. Maybe that is why some of us are born, a calling of some kind. I'm very happy when I simplify things to reach even the furthest of places. Thank you very much for that. Let me come to the listener on the Indians who were removed. The Indians came on contract around 1816 in South Africa. Once their contracts ended, some decided to go back to India, some remained. It was a problem for those colonies, especially the Free State of Transvaal. Laws were promulgated where it was stated that they could not be having businesses or outside their bazaar, so to speak. Guess what? Because the law says there's a company separate from the individuals that form it. It's called the corporate veil. You have to be separated. So what some two Indians do and another did was to form a company which had a business in the Krugersdorp. That case is called Dadu versus Krugersdorp Municipality of 1920, where they said the courts by a majority said no, a company can have ownership of the land because not individuals. The government was so aggrieved, they changed the law to say it's not enough to be persons that are of Indian origin, but even companies majority controlled by them cannot have land. You see, they circumvented that. So there was some ingenuity by those that were victims. They did not sit still and accept things. So I'm proud of Dadu. It was a 1920 case. I did it when I was doing second year. That was 1979. That's how important it was. I still remember it. So people did not sit still. That is why there were marches for pass against passes in 1956, against the Group Areas Act and all the accompanying laws. I'll do that with pleasure, a podcast on this. I will take that invitation and do it. Thank you very much for that.
I've got also Franz in Centurion. Good afternoon, Franz. Welcome to the show.
Afternoon, ma'am. You know what I think what delays the restructuring or the appropriation of land is because people want to go back to the future. You know, you want to reverse the settlement. I think if we can just let everybody be, only people in need of the land, then they must just be given land. This thing of us saying then, just because, just like in my case, I'm from Hampatel, then if they say the people there used to be where Pretoria, where the Tshwane is today, now we want to take over Tshwane. I think if we were only allocated land, only people that need the land, you know, not necessarily you must go back to your origin, you know. That's what directs this appropriation. That's what I think. You know, that's all I want to say. Right? If we can just be at peace with ourselves and only people in need of the space, and then because then it was by the time of wars and colonization and everything. I find it very difficult. That's why we never get it right, because we want to go back to the original. That alone, I think that's why it is dragging so long.
Point taken, Franz. That's Franz in Centurion. I think maybe understanding the basis is so important, because when we start having certain conversations that involve land and allocation of land, it then becomes a little bit complex, especially if you're not well versed in regard to where it originated from. But coming back to you, my guest, Bonta Mpumela Lonyoka, lawyer and social commentator, what's your take on that?
Okay, the topic today is not necessarily about land as such, although it is to some extent. We're talking about residential areas, settlements, human settlements, where groups were removed from an area to another. Yes, it is so that we do not look at the past, but we have to look at the past so that we don't repeat it, number two. Number three, the guest has got his own right to say, let's not go back to the past, etc. I'll refer him to French philosopher Rousseau, who said, I may disapprove of what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. So I disapprove of what you're saying, but I'll defend to death his right to say it. We cannot put blinkers on what happened. We acknowledge what happened. We have vowed and undertaken that we're not going to repeat it. But you cannot acknowledge what happened earlier on. There are people who are bearing scars. Those tears must crystallize into a jewel of hope and faith for the future and for our children. So those tears are not wasted. Let's turn them into crystals of jewels so that this can be better counted than when we found it in 1950. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bonta Mpumela Lonyoka, lawyer and social commentator, chatting to us this afternoon. Thank you so very much for making time. Hopefully we'll be able to, find you whenever we need to, so that we can really engage and dissect some of these matters, because they need to be dissected and be fully understood. Thank you so very much. Have yourself a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks for nice comments. Thank you.
The Copper Queens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win. But the Teranga Lionesses believe they have everything under control to roar with victory to the referee's final whistle. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the thrilling action between the West and the South. Zambia versus Senegal this Wednesday 9 July at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to The Full Circle, made in SA.
Well, coming up next, hashtag Made in SA, founded by a team of women, girls on the move, is addressing two critical challenges in rural South Africa: reliable, safe transportation and economic empowerment for women and youth. And I'm speaking to the director, Girls on the Move, that's Gabby van der Merwe. Good afternoon and welcome to the show, Gabby.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about the journey of this concept from idea to implementation or impact.
Well, initially, the company was started by myself, my sister, and two of my cousins. We've been struggling to find jobs over maybe, I think it's 3 to 4 years that we've been searching for jobs here in Tanzania, and we haven't, not one of us have successfully found a job in these 4 years. And that's when I came up with the idea that we should start a business. My cousin Jasmine came up with the idea of a food business, and I came up with the idea of a car wash business. So that's how it all started. It started with joblessness, per se. That's how the journey came about.
And how is the transport sector unlocking access to education and employment?
Excuse me, can you repeat that, please?
How is the transport sector unlocking access to education and employment?
Well, our business, it's not just for transportation, but also we wash people's cars. We have a mobile car wash, which helps not only us, but it creates jobs for others as well, for other young women and young men. Our focus is not solely on women, but also on the young men here in Tanzania who are struggling to find employment. So it has opened many doors.
So maybe let's just rewind a little bit. Let's talk about the business itself. If you could just break it down, what the sectors that you have within the business, the services that you offer.
It's car care services. So that is the car wash sector of the business, and transportation is also included. And then we have the food sector as well.
Okay. So when you talk about the food sector, is it transportation of food or what is it?
Yes, it's transportation of food, delivering food. We cook and deliver the food. Food is the name of the food business. It's we cook and we sell food that Tanzania not normally sells. Most times we see traditional South African traditional food being sold, and so we decided to just switch it up a little bit and sell goodies that foodies love, that foodies crave, that we mostly see on TikTok per se. So that is our aim with our food business.
That is so commendable. You know, finding yourself without a job is not one of the easiest thing. And then you come up with a plan and you put the plan in action. Really, really commendable. Maybe let's talk about the Northern Cape. Being a young person in the Northern Cape and creating a space where you're creating jobs. You're also creating a livelihood for yourself. What has that been like? The challenges as well involved.
Well, first of all, let me start with the challenges. It has not been easy, especially in terms of transport in the beginning for ourselves when it came to our car wash business, which is mobile, traveling to places all around Tanzania to deliver these services. But we've overcome those challenges nicely with the help of family mostly. And but besides the challenges, it's been an amazing experience. We've evolved quite well, slowly, but steadily. Yeah.
And the future plans to scale, to serve more communities, how do you intend to grow? Have you been thinking about it?
We have been thinking about it. We've also went to the municipality a few times to ask for land where we can put this business idea into clearer action. Like, people in Tanzania have recognized us by now. They know our business, they know about the car wash business, they know about the food business, but we would like to have our own land, because at this moment we wash the cars at our home, at our home, but we would like to have land that we can say this is where our car wash is, and this is where our food is sold. So that is one of our short-term goals for our business.
I'm speaking to Director Girls on the Move, Gabby van der Merwe, from School Runs, Event Logistics. Their services are designed with care, dignity and community impact, and, you know, taking business to another level, slowly but surely, which means anything can be achieved if you put your mind to it. And they're such an inspirational group of women making sure that they do make a difference. And for more information, where do we go, Gabby? Gabby?
We are on Facebook, Girls on the Move Enterprise on Facebook. We are also on Instagram, Foodies Pty Ltd on Instagram, and my cell phone number 078-614-7056. Our email gabyvdm12@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for making time. That's Gabby van der Merwe, Director Girls on the Move. Thank you for making time, and have yourself a good afternoon.
My name is Kaylin Swart, goalkeeper for Banyana. Between the 3 meals of the day, my favorite is breakfast. I always have eggs. Eggs is my superpower. In the house setup, my favorite place is the chill room. I'm always in front of the TV watching something. That's only because I get so little downtime. I just want to relax on the couch and watch TV, whether it's football, cricket, rugby, you name it. We are the African champions. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
You and I have a country to build, difficult conversations to have, solutions to find, and stories to tell. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 p.m. to midnight.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
As South African matrics wrap up their midterm exams, the results they receive will serve as a critical checkpoint on their journey towards the final matric exams later this year. And I know it is panic time. We've all gone through it. If you've written your matric, you know what it's like. Come mid-year, come June, July, then you receive your results. And if you didn't perform well, you start panicking. There's no need to panic. Just relax. Think of a strategy to make it work. So these midterm results are more than just grades. They are a valuable tool to assess progress, identify areas of improvement, build a solid strategy for success in the National Senior Certificate examinations. An education expert says so, and you and I know that's how it all works. And we are joined by Adrian Garden, Dean Academic at Rosebank College, to help us deal, maybe pause, think, strategize, re-strategize, think of a plan if at all the first plan didn't work out the way you wanted it to work. Adrian, good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making time this afternoon.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners.
This must be a daunting time for matriculants. I mean, writing your mid-year exams, and one finds they haven't made it the way they want to make it. Maybe they've scored 50% instead of 70%. Let's start right at the beginning. Any plan?
Yeah, and I think the mid-year results kind of give you the guidance to formulate that plan. And it gives you the opportunity to rebalance and refocus your the plan that you will have for your finals. So if, for example, you thought maths would be your worst subject, but actually you ended up doing okay there, it gives you a chance to refocus on the subjects you thought you'd do well in but didn't. I think it's one of those things that could create panic, but with the guidance of teachers and parents, we can use it as an opportunity to share a life lesson with students as well, to say you've got to be agile, and this is how you can change your plan to meet the current need.
And how does one deal with the disappointment and start refocusing to reflect on the next performance?
Well, I think the important thing is to emphasize that your mid-year is not your end result. And in as much as you may be disappointed with certain subjects, the end goal is still in sight, and there is still time between now and that end goal to achieve the dream outcome that you originally had. It really is a time to put things in perspective and to overcome disappointment quite quickly, because at the end of the day, this is a stepping stone. It's not the final destination.
Parents always play a very pivotal role, because if your parents are supportive, I suppose your chances of settling in and trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve just becomes, a little bit more positive. Would you have any guide per se for parents, or means and ways to support their children to chart out or to chart a path for their educational support or success?
Indeed, I think the first thing is to really also bear in mind what the responsibility is of the parent. You said it's sometimes the parent thinks that they're the ones writing the trick, but it's actually the child. So, if we as adults who are used to pressure can also keep our emotions in check, our stress levels in check, so that we introduce an environment that is conducive to a bit more of a calm approach. I think that's item number one. The other one is again, perhaps not setting such high and pressurized expectations on the student, knowing that there are perhaps limitations in certain subjects, that it would be better if they were realistic in that, so that they can get a better overall grade, which actually does have a big impact on your university acceptance, rather than trying to focus on one or two subjects that you as a parent think is absolutely crucial.
Okay, so if we were to draw up a plan, maybe let's go step by step, if that is possible. So mid-years come out, whether you've performed well, maybe it's mediocre, maybe you want to improve your marks. You basically reflect on your performance, and you identify your weaknesses and your strengths. Then you've just mentioned that you've got to set basically realistic goals. What would be the next stage from there?
Well, I think it almost becomes very practical. You know, you're diarizing the plan to a point where from a week-by-week basis, you are allocating time to each subject. And based on the mid-year performance, you might need to rethink the plan that you already had in place. So, you know, if you had X amount of hours for maths, but you're actually doing okay in maths, but not so well in history, you reallocate some of the hours. And it becomes a week-by-week, almost a day-by-day breakdown of, you know, I'm going to school, then I'm going to have a break, then for 2 hours I'm going to focus on maths on a Monday, and then on a Tuesday it's going to be history. And it may sound very simplistic, but, those foundational puzzle pieces then will fit together to actually create quite a solid foundation for a sustained plan that includes balance, so that, you know, you because you've planned it so well, that you are able to exercise. You can take a few, an hour or two with your friends to relax and decompress a little bit, because it can't all be about study. So, you know, the extent to which you do these basics means that you actually are quite calm and able to think rationally about what else you can include, like exercise and so on.
And how important is it to seek support, any support that you need?
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. You know, and sometimes it may not be the parents. It could well be a teacher. Your teaching staff at your school are as dedicated to your outcome as a matriculant as you are. So, they become especially useful if you're trying to understand what went wrong in your mid-years, and why you thought you were going to do this, but actually you achieved less. They can pinpoint the specific topics that you might want to revise. And again, that then feeds into your practical plan. So you can actually then map, which topics am I going to cover, and how am I going to check that I have actually improved my understanding? And that's again where your teachers can come in as well.
And then food becomes, we undermine nutrition, having to maintain your mental clarity. And that also is contributed by, your diet and all that. How important is it to maintain that mental clarity? And how does one achieve that actually, apart from just your nutrients and just making sure that you're well exercised, you're well looked after, your food intake is proper?
I think the downfall is, when you realize perhaps that you've left things a bit late, and suddenly you're pulling an all-nighter, or you're studying well into the night, which means that the following day your energy levels are low, so then you resort to a quick fix like an energy drink and things like that. So at all costs, we need to avoid getting into that kind of cycle of panic and reactive remedies to try and resolve this. So your planning then does allow you to be quite calm about this, which means that you don't have to lose sleep because you're suddenly panicking and you've left things to the last minute. And as you are well planned, it means that you are also able to take in the right nutrition, the right kind of fluid intake and things like that, because it isn't all falling apart to the last minute and you're having to compensate for it.
That is so true. I always used to have a tutor who always used to say to me, when all fails and you feel like you're overfeeding your beast, right at the market, it may just get constipated. It's better to have a constipated beast than to have a hungry beast. So maybe just having those sleepless nights, if you feel like time is running out, is better than not even trying at all.
No, indeed. There will come a point where perhaps the plan goes wrong, and that's a reality as well. So then you've got to adjust, and it could be that you've got to, spend less time in bed and more time in front of the books. Bearing in mind as well then that, at the end of the day, this is only a point in time in your life. And, there are alternatives, and there are always ways to find yourself back on your path if this is not the one that works out for you.
Adrian Garden, Dean Academic at Rosebank College. And just before I let you go, maybe during this time towards the final exams, is there anywhere, any space where students can find information to guide, or maybe it could be where they can find past papers? Used to be the thing back then where they say, you know what, practice using past papers?
Indeed, I would plug into the school system for that. So your school environment and your teachers have a wealth of knowledge and understanding, as well as a bank of past papers that they can assist. I know that there are also websites available that you can do that from, but I think the combination of getting it from your teacher and then perhaps sitting with them and allowing them to review even your responses would then further guide you in terms of how you can amend your plan to the finals.
Adrian, thank you so much for joining us on The Full Circle. Have yourself a great afternoon. That's Adrian Garden, Dean Academic at Rosebank College. It's now 2 o'clock and it's time for news with Ondela.
Thank you, Bertha. On the top stories, disaster funds to be awarded to various municipalities, and Kenyan police fire tear gas to disperse protesters. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. 1.2 billion rand in disaster relief funds will be awarded to various municipalities across the country from July to August this year. The Eastern Cape province, which was severely impacted by the recent floods that claimed 103 lives, including school children, will receive the biggest allocation. The monies are being allocated in 3 phases. Briefing the media in Johannesburg, COGTA Minister Velinkosini Hlabisa warned against the misuse of the funds. He says a verification process will be done to ensure there are no price inflation.
There are municipalities even now who are struggling to pay salaries, and we will be observing them very closely that this money does not go to salaries. We have identified them as red flag municipalities. And maybe even before the 5th of August, we will invite the media in a joint meeting with premiers, with MECs, and all these municipalities who were given money last year, given money in March, given money now. And we want to be transparent.
Human Settlements Minister Thembisi Melane has hailed the former Deputy President David Mabuza as a grounded political leader who had time-keeping skills. President Cyril Ramaphosa has accorded former Deputy President David Mabuza with a state funeral Category 2, which will be held on Saturday in Mpumalanga. The former president passed away last Thursday at the age of 64 after a short illness at a Johannesburg hospital. Simelane is among the national ANC leaders who paid tribute to Mabuza at his home in Barberton. She says Mabuza has always been a person who loved people.
I remember him as a man of less weight but more work. When you accompany him either as a mayor or whatever, his fight with you will be more about where's the water, mayor? Why are you doing this and why there isn't that?
The man who pleaded guilty to being part of the murder of former ANC League Secretary General Sindiso Magaqa in 2017 has been sentenced to an effective 25 years imprisonment by the Pietermaritzburg High Court in KZN. And today, Sibusiso Ngengwa admitted to shooting Magaqa in 2017 in the Umzimkhulu area and pleaded guilty to the attempted murder of Jabulile Msiya and Nontsikelelo Mafa, who were in the car with Magaqa. He also pleaded guilty to attempted murder of Nceba Mazongolo, who was close to the scene during the shooting. He faced 11 charges, including conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and unlawful possession of a firearm, as well as ammunition. Handing down the sentence, Judge Nondutuzelo Mlaba said Ngengwa showed disregard for human life.
Mr. Ngengwa, you are sentenced as follows. Count 1. Conspiracy to commit murder, you are sentenced to 25 years imprisonment. Count 2, murder, you are sentenced to 25 years imprisonment. Count 3, attempted murder, you are sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Count 4, attempted murder, you are sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Count 5, attempted murder, you are sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Malicious injury to property, you are sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. Count 10, unlawful possession of a firearm, you are sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Count 11, unlawful possession of ammunition, you are sentenced to 1 year imprisonment. The sentences in counts 1, 3 to 11 are to run concurrently with the sentence in count 2.
Community health workers in the Northwest Province are calling for the Department of Health to employ them permanently. This comes after the Labour Court in Johannesburg ruled earlier this year that they should be employed as permanent government employees. Health workers in the province have been working as temporary employees since the inception of the program. They say following the ruling, they have been engaging the department in the province, but nothing has come of it. A community health worker representative, Dinewa Nkamane, says they have been on fixed-term contracts for years, leaving them with no job security and no benefits.
Majority of
CHW are dying. We are infected. Many of us got injured on duty, but the department does not recognize that. And when you're on pension, you get nothing. Even when you die, your children will not get anything. So we want permanent jobs that Gauteng people got, so that we should get benefits. There's a rumor that they employ people with matric. We want all CHWs in 8 provinces be employed permanently.
Kenyan police have fired tear gas and blocked roads leading to the capital, Nairobi, to prevent protesters from getting to the city centre. Demonstrations are planned across Kenya to mark the anniversary of pro-democracy protests in 1990. Many towns are deserted for fear of violence. The BBC's Joel Kiruingi has the details.
In a statement issued late on Sunday, the police said it was their constitutional duty to protect lives and property while maintaining public order. Recent protests have turned violent, with armed groups looting and attacking demonstrators. Today's protests mark the 35th anniversary of the historic 7th of July demonstrations, widely known as Saba Saba, which were a turning point in the struggle for multi-party democracy in Kenya. The government's response was brutal, with many protesters arrested, tortured or killed.
Recapping the top story, 1.2 billion rand in disaster relief funds will be awarded to various municipalities across the country from July to August this year. I'm Wandilambana for SAFM News Headlines at 2:30.
The Congolese have a huge mission to silence the hosts. But the Atlas Lionesses are not shaken. They are confident they will keep the people of Morocco happy. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the exciting contest between Democratic Republic of Congo and Morocco this Wednesday, 9 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
They both have a rich history of glory. Amakosi tackle the Porcupine Warriors.
This is as good as it gets.
This is the Toyota Cup.
The game you've been looking forward to on your football calendar.
Giants refuse to fall.
The big game.
The big game. On Saturday, 26 July at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus across the entire African continent and SABC One. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport in proud partnership with Kaizer Chiefs Football Club.
You are listening to SAFM Radio, this Mandela Month.
It is in your hands now.
Living your best life on the Full Circle. Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
thing is, I just can't control myself. I never thought that I could be with anyone else until you came into my life and you showed me there is love. And I think I love you. That's too soon. Da-da-dee, da-da-do, da-da-dee, da-da-do, bow, ba-da-bee, ba-da-bow, down, da-da-dee, da-da-do, da-da-dee, da-da-do, bow.
That's Black Coffee featuring Boosie and Superman. We just need something just to, get ourselves tapping, because the country right now is going through quite a bit. I mean, we just lost our ex-former deputy president, is it? Yes. David Mabuza. So it's a bit much. And also then the drama that just comes with the police force. So sometimes we just need to loosen up a bit. So we thought today, let's just be a little bit more happier. But anyway, nonetheless, coming up on the show, losing talent, losing trust, the high price of flawed hiring practices. So as South Africa has high unemployment rate and tough job market continues to entrench a power imbalance between employers and job applicants, it is increasingly common for candidates to be subjected to disrespectful, can hear my emphasis on disrespectful or disorganized hiring practices, including unprepared interviews or interviewers, lack of personalized feedback, and ghosting. Experts warns that employers that do such practices not only drive away top talent but can inflict long-term damage on a company's reputation, since candidates will soon share negative experiences online and within their professional networks. And she also points out that AI, artificial intelligence, and automation are transforming recruitment, basic courtesy and human connection, still providing, competitive edge for employers. So this is what has happened. And I think also COVID didn't help when we all had to work from home, and we lost that human touch and that understanding and knowing, looking into someone's eyes and having a human connection. We lost it somehow. But how do we get it back in this fast-moving, artificial intelligent times? To help us unpack, I've got Advaita Naidu, leadership expert, Africa MD at Jack Hammer Global, just to make us understand what exactly is going on. How do we harness this culture that we've developed? It's not by choice. I think also circumstances has forced us to behave in a certain manner. Good to have you on the show, and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me, except I'm feeling the pressure. You went from this nice peppy song into this very disheartening topic, and I'm hoping we can put a positive spin on it or share some best practice at the end, but I hear you. It is really depressing, isn't it?
It is so depressing. Look, we've got to mix the good and the bad for us to manage this life. And, since what we are about to talk about is something that is really, really worrying a bit. So, we've all been experiencing a different way or a different culture of being employed. What are the most common and impactful flaws you've observed in hiring practices across industries that you think are, that stand out?
Yes, I mean, if we're talking about this poor candidate experience that you touched on, so the biggest thing, and I think it's the overarching theme, is that companies have forgotten that they're not buying commodities, they're actually hiring humans, and so the humanity has seeped out of the process. And then when we think about the fact that we have quite a tough job market here, and companies generally hold the upper hand, so this disorganized hiring processes have become more normalized, and it becomes problematic because it damages brands and erodes trust. And the ways in which they do it is they don't give candidates feedback. They depersonalize by using AI tools and then just not even following up with the courtesy, we're sorry, your application was unsuccessful. And then, worst of all, if a candidate has gone through a process, like you said, there are steps that are added in, it becomes overly onerous, and interviewers just aren't prepared because they think that they are holding the upper hand and that candidates should be very grateful that they've been given the opportunity, and that's really not the case.
Are there any methodologies that can be used, or, diagnostic tools that you can use to make sure that, the way you're operating does not alienate the good talent that you actually are trying to attract?
So I think this is one of those things where, as humans, we have an additive solution bias, and I hear you when you say, are there diagnostic tools? But honestly, this is really just about being human again, and the highest impact, lowest effort change is to communicate with and respect your candidates clearly upfront about what the hiring process is going to be. Include the timelines, include the stages, tell them all the hoops that they're going to need to jump through. When they get to that stage where they're being interviewed, ensure that the interviewers are prepared. They've reviewed the CVs. They know who they're talking to, and they're not just kind of brushing up as they go through it. Interviewing is actually a skill. It shouldn't come across as an interrogation. The panel shouldn't presuppose that the candidate doesn't have other options. They actually need to sell the company as much as the candidate needs to sell him or herself. And then, back to the ghosting story, if you don't have any feedback and you haven't made a decision yet, master the art of no feedback. You can call a candidate and say, listen, we haven't made a decision yet, but we haven't forgotten about you. And then when you have made a decision, close the loop. If you think about ghosting in dating, nobody wants to know that there's potential that the door is still open. People will forgive if the answer is no, but they need to hear that the answer is no. Because if they've been strung along for months and they haven't had any feedback, then that causes waves of self-doubt, and it really reflects poorly on the company.
Absolutely. Lines are opened, and our voice note line is also opened. And if you want to text, you can do that, and you can use our line. Our live line is 086 000 2032, or you can text or send a voice note that's 061 410 410 And we're talking about, poor candidate experiences in corporate hiring. They don't only drive away good talent, but you end up hiring lower grade, which can really, really suffocate, the progress of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. But if you'd like to feed into the conversation, maybe share your views, give us a call or send us a voice note. We take a small break and we'll be back.
Join us for this year's fundraiser, Jazz for Young People concert at the National School of the Arts on the 26th of July. This unique event, perfect for families, is a powerful celebration of youth, creativity and community spirit. So bring the whole family to enjoy a wonderful day of world-class jazz curated by Zoe Mudicha, featuring the Parktown Girls Band, Tshwane School of Music, The Real DJ Zandi, Kutlotaro Jazz Band, and many others. Tickets are just 80 Rand and 50 Rand for kids under 12 via Quicket. Jazz for Young People is proudly brought to you by Standard Bank Joy of Jazz.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
They all believe they will be crowned champions, but gold medallions are reserved for the best of them all. It is the incredible clash of the 12 African women's national teams. Catch all the 24 matches of the Cap Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
And I'm talking to Advaita Naidu, leadership expert and Africa MD at Jack Hammer Global. And we thought, let's really dissect what is happening in the employment environment, or should I say the hiring environment, where you and I are looking for jobs. And if you are an expert in your area, you find that the job that's being offered and how you're being treated is not really somehow balancing. And just to help us unpack, and maybe you've experienced it, how did you handle it? If most probably you applied for a job and the response was just a little bit shoddy, how did you handle the situation? But welcome back to my guest. So let's take a look at some of the issues that we experience. Companies, have basically become so accustomed to treating candidates carelessly, due to, of course, an oversupply of talent.
Yes, but I think what companies need to remember rather, is that we actually live in a hyper-connected world, and people can and will share negative experiences with their networks. They might use LinkedIn to put it on full blast, or they might share it a bit more limited, a bit more selectly on something like WhatsApp. So it not only makes it unlikely that the same candidates will re-engage, but it erodes the talent pipeline by poisoning their networks. It damages their brand. And companies don't think about why they're not necessarily attracting top talent, like you said. But if you track metrics like increasing quality applicants, higher office acceptance rates, improved employer sentiment, there'll be tangible evidence that they're doing something right. And companies are very good about talking about their employee value proposition, but they're not walking the talk at every step of the value chain, and recruitment is one of them.
Then AI came, artificial intelligence. And it's really perpetuating the situation. How do we harness this issue? How do we mitigate this?
Yeah, and so the reason this happened is because it just became that much easier to process a huge volume of applications at scale. And of course, we know that not every person will meet every requirement for the job, but in the past, they may have at least been offered the opportunity for a human to be screening a CV and deciding where the flex points were. And now AI is being used for this basic screening, and it is wholesale rejecting candidates who may otherwise have made it through a filter, and that might be losing out on some alternative top talent, which is really a loss for the company. But because the thing is, efficiency shouldn't mean impersonal, and recruiters still need to upgrade themselves, and this is in-house recruiters and external recruiters, upgrade themselves in the form of working with the technology to make the process a little bit more friction-free, but not to discount candidates who would otherwise have made it through, and certainly not to reject candidates without giving them feedback.
And with all these challenges that we're faced with, the emerging trends and the technologies that have come up, the AI that has come up, maybe I don't know whether you could have some form of a prescription of sorts to say, look, these are just the basic steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're an organization that is hiring, I know that you've highlighted the fact that, you've got to revert back. If somebody has sent you something and they didn't get the position, just go back to say, unfortunately, you were not accepted, which is one of them. Are there any other pointers maybe you would like to share with our listeners?
I mean, honestly, I think the overarching thing is just put yourself in that person's shoes. Wouldn't you want to receive feedback? But again, the point is the humanity and the communication. So with all the tools that we have at our disposal, communication should be easier than ever, and we shouldn't be missing steps in the process because our jobs have become easier. Again, efficiency doesn't need to be impersonal.
And for more information, where do we go?
Please visit our website, www.jhammerglobal.com. We are an executive search firm. We do work with clients to advise them on this kind of best practice and how to treat candidates well.
I know. I was just laughing as I was going through my script where, you also see ghosting. And I used to think ghosting only happens in relationships and family affairs on social media. But ghosting when you've just applied for a job, it does happen where you sit and you wait and you think that maybe, response will come and response never comes. Or maybe response comes after 6 months.
It does. And, on the one hand, I think companies want to keep their options open. But on the other, very much like in dating, and you mentioned a script, people shy away from delivering bad news because they don't want to be the bad guy and they're afraid of how someone will react. But honestly, it's worse not to share. And to make it better, you can actually script what you're going to say so as not to create false future expectations or, again, to cause candidates to doubt themselves. Ghosting is not okay when you have tangible feedback to share, even if it is something as simple as, I'm sorry you didn't get the role. We have gone with a candidate who was better suited to the position. You don't have to tell somebody that they weren't the exact right fit and why. You can give them pointers because that would be the humane thing to do, but you don't have to delve into all their, you don't have to open up a can of worms and think that, somebody's going to come back to me and tell me exactly why they were right for a role. You can actually be kind in your decline.
And just before I let you go, I know that I had said lastly, did we ever used to have any ethics? Because it seems like now we have any compass of ethics at all as organizations.
I mean, yeah, that's quite a loaded question, and I see where you're coming from. I think it's not so much the lack of ethics. I think it's just the lack of consideration, because it's easy to forget steps when we're living in a very fast-paced world, and we do have that much more on our plates. And again, I think this is what causes this humanity to seep out of most things that we do. It's just the volume of what we have to deal with.
That's Advaita Naidu, leadership expert and Africa MD at Jack Hammer Global, talking to us about the state of the way we are now managing this new culture of hiring, of communication within organizations, which I can safely say it has become a little bit poor. And something just needs to happen. But thank you so much for making time for us, Advaita, and have yourself a great afternoon. Thank you, and bye-bye for now. It is 2:30 and it's time for news headlines.
Thank you, Bertha. On the news headlines, 1.2 billion rand in disaster relief funds will be awarded to various municipalities across the country from July to August this year. Minister of Human Settlement Thembi Simelane has hailed the late former Deputy President David Mabuza as a grounded political leader who had timekeeping skills, and an Australian inquest has ruled that a police officer who shot and killed an indigenous teenager while trying to arrest him was racist. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
The Eagles of Carthage and the Phoenix both believe they are the queens of North Africa. Who are the real queens of the North? This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the spectacular battle between Tunisia and Algeria this Thursday, 10 July at 6 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Herman Mashaba's response is so interesting, and he said, John, when I was the mayor of the city of Joburg, I fired 3 DA Mako members for corruption. The party kept them as councillors. South Africa is not going to succeed in fighting corruption for as long as we apply double standards. Corruption is
no
corruption.
Such thing. The whole country knows Shrub. You can't trust anything Herman Mashaba says. One day, he's a flip-flopper of plastic notes. There's one politician in this country who's renowned for being a flip-flopper, who's unable to stay true to any public comment without changing it the next second. It is Herman Mashaba.
Karabo Kaukau, the DA national spokesperson.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. This program is brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello friends, and welcome to our Monday edition of Kids Corner. Today we're taking a fun trip back in time through games. Do you know any traditional or indigenous games that your parents or grandparents used to play when they were young? Have you ever played games like Morabaraba, Diketo or Khati? Which one is your favorite? These kind of games don't need fancy toys or electricity, but they're still so much fun. What do you think makes them special? Would you like to learn a new indigenous game during the holidays? And why do you think it's important to keep playing and remembering these games our elders used to enjoy? Well, let's hear from some of our friends while you share your thoughts with someone next to you.
Good day everyone, my name is Kara Kumalo and I'm 10 years old. I know an indigenous game by the name of Diketo. I have played an indigenous game, Diketo. Diketo is my favorite game because I get to compete with other people. What makes indigenous games fun is that most outdoor games are indigenous. Yes, I would like to learn an indigenous game during the holidays. It's important to remember the games our elders used to play because we can teach the next generation. Thank you for listening to me. Bye.
Hello everybody, my name is Kosi Tambani. I am from Theo Veterinary Primary School. My parents have a lot of traditional games, but the most traditional game is probably Tiketo. Tiketo is a game where you take a bunch of rocks and throw them up in the sky so you can catch them. Tiketo is a very important game to learn because it helps you develop catching skills.
Hello everyone, my name is Shibuya. I'm 10 years old. Yes, I know traditional games that my parents used to play. They used to play Ndedo, Kadi, na Muzumbam. I have played Ndedo and Kadi. My favorite one is Ndedo because I always win. These games are fun because we play together. We use natural items like stones, sticks, and sand for the game. They are fun because we run around, jump, and hide, which is fun. I would like to learn Murabaraba. I think it is important to play these games as they are fun and I can play with my friends.
Good day, everyone. My name is Dondima Komisani. I'm 11 years old. I'm in grade 5 and I go to St. Andrew's School for Girls. I do know traditional and indigenous games that my parents played when they were young. I have played Marabaraba. My favorite one is Marabaraba. I think what makes it fun without electricity or toys is the fact that you get to be more social with people and you don't have to be staring at a screen all day. I would like to learn indigenous and traditional games during the holidays. I would like to learn Diketo because my mom played it when she was young. I think it's important to keep playing and remembering these games because it brings us closer to our elders in ways we never knew we could get closer to them. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Angel and I am 9 years old. Yes, I do. One of the games I know is Tiketo. I have played the game with my friends. My favorite game is Murabaraba because it is fun and a little bit tricky. And it is a teamwork game. Indigenous games are fun because we don't need any equipment or electricity to play them. Just our imaginations and friend. Yes, I would like to learn a game called Ditini because it sounds interesting. It's important to keep playing these games so we don't forget what our elders used to do and to keep our culture alive. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Good day to everyone. My name is Kawajoke. I'm 10 years old and I go to St. Catherine's School in Germiston. Yes, I do know indigenous games that my parents played when they were younger. Yes, I have played Kati and Dikito. My favorite is Kati because you can see who can skip the most. I think they made indigenous games fun because they had no toys to play with. Yes, I would like to learn more indigenous games during the holiday. I'd like to learn Kati, Marabaraba, and Dikito because I think they're important to remember our roots and where we come from. Thank you for listening. Have a lovely day.
Good day, everyone. My name is Zamanga Zumiana. Yes, I do know some examples of indigenous games, and here are some. In Tongo, a game where you fight each other with sticks or twigs. Murabaraba. While most people will be familiar with this game, Murabaraba is a traditional two-player strategy board game played in South Africa and Botswana, with a slightly different version played in Lesotho. I learned about all of these traditional games at school in life skills, and I have played both of them. I think kids should play indigenous games because playing indigenous games not only improves your physical development, they also get to experience and let their imagination wander. Children also learn social skills because most Most of the games are played in groups. They also learn to understand rules. Thank you for listening and bye for now. See you next week.
Hello, my name is Potama Chetan. Yes, I do know indigenous games that were played in the olden days. Games like hopscotch, only a bit more ancient. I came to learn about them through old movies and television and at school. Yes, there are some that I play currently. Yes, it is important for children to play indigenous games so they know and learn about their culture more.
Hello, my name is Baramadia. I do know one of the indigenous games that were played in the olden days. The ones I know and I've played are Coco, Jukski, and Newtonori. How I came to learn this is that I saw other kids playing them and then I was interested. For now, there is nothing I find interesting and I play currently. I think it is important that children learn indigenous games because they can learn how other kids from a long time ago used to play, and there can be some good history within those indigenous games.
Thank you, friends. It's always great to hear from you. Did you know that long before video games, TV, or fancy toys, children like you and me still had lots of fun playing traditional and indigenous games passed down from their parents and grandparents? Maybe your granny or grandpa has told you stories about games like Morabaraba, Diketo, Khati, or even Intonga and Dikebe. These games don't need electricity or screens, just a few stones, sticks, a rope, or even just your imagination. Have you ever played any of these? Morabaraba is a thinking game, kind of like chess, where two players use cow, little markers to try and outsmart each other. Diketo is about hand-eye coordination, picking up stones quickly while tossing one in the air. Khati is a skipping game where kids jump between long ropes being swung by others. So much laughter and teamwork. These games are not only fun, they also teach us skills like concentration, teamwork, quick flexes, and respect for rules. And best of all, you get to play outside, make new friends, and stay active and healthy while you're having a blast. If you could learn one indigenous game this holidays, which one would it be? Maybe you could ask an elder to teach you, or gather your friends and start a game in your own street or yard. No batteries needed. It is important to remember and play these games because they connect us to our roots, to our history, and remind us that fun doesn't have to be bought. It can be shared. So go ahead, jump, clap, skip, throw, and laugh. And this holiday, bring back the joy of the games our elders used to play. Until next time, keep playing, keep learning, and keep your culture alive through fun. That's it for today, friends. See you next time.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
A new client, a bulk discount, a chance to expand. Business opportunities don't wait, but with a Standard Bank Business Revolving Loan, neither do you. Get up to 10 million Rand in funding, access it anytime, and borrow again as you repay, giving your business the cash flow it needs when it needs it. Keep your business growing with a Standard Bank Business Revolving Loan. Visit standardbank.co.za/business loans to apply. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
My name's Kaylin Swart, goalkeeper for Banyana. Between the 3 meals of the day, my favorite is breakfast. I always have eggs. Eggs is my superpower. In the house setup, my favorite place is the chill room. I'm always in front of the TV watching something. That's only because I get so little downtime. I just want to relax on the couch and watch TV, whether it's football, cricket, rugby, you name it. We are the African champions. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Morning Brief.
When we say there are syndicates manufacturing and distributing, what does that look like?
You take the cigarette industry. There again, the illicit cigarettes are flooding this market. They are being openly sold for far less than the minimum collectible tax on a pack of 20 cigarettes, which is about 26 Rand with that. They sold for 10 rand, 12 rand, and we know that the smuggling of these products from especially Zimbabwe into South Africa through our porous borders is a growing problem. And despite some breakthroughs and arrests here and there, the kingpins are not being arrested. I mean, take the gold mafia that was exposed about 2 years ago. Up to today, not a single arrest has been made. And what does it tell you? It shows there's no political will to fight the scourge. There's very little political will.
That's Yusuf Abram G, who is an anti-crime activist.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. This Mandela Month, Nelson Mandela once said,
"We have traveled a long journey. We have fought for peace and reconciliation, for social justice, for all men, women, and children."
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to The Full Circle. Bertha Charuma on SAFM.
And it's a warm welcome back. Coming up, I'm going to be speaking to Sonia Jackson-Miles, founder, president and CEO of the Sister Accord Foundation. So over the weekend, the Sister Accord Foundation announced the recipients of the Nella D. Jackson Memorial Scholarships and the Sister Accord Dream Walking Business Grants, honoring individuals, organizations dedicated to uplifting and empowering their communities. And Sonia Jackson-Miles, founder, president and CEO of the Sister Accord Foundation, launched this beautiful foundation to assist those that are in need. But I think to hear the backdrop of the story and how this all was introduced, I do have my guest online. Sonia, good to have you on the show.
Oh, Sister Bertha, I am so honored to be with you.
Thank you so much for making time. So on Saturday, the Sister Accord Foundation launched a South African chapter and honored community empowerment organizations at as the sanctuary launch at Sanctuary Mandela. Maybe if you could just elaborate what triggered this to be put in place.
Well, I tell you, South Africa has a very special place in my heart. When I worked for Ford Motor Company years ago, even though I'm
Okay, my line has just gone a little bit crazy there. I think let's give it another moment. Let's give it a try. Sonia? Okay, let's give Sonia just a minute so that we can just reconnect. And if you've just tuned in, speaking to Sonia Jackson-Miles, founder, president and CEO of the Sister Accord Foundation. Let's just take a small detour. We'll be back.
This Mandela Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit of Ubuntu, calling on all South Africans to engage, uplift, and do good for one another. Let's share what we have, lend a helping hand, and honor Madiba's legacy through kindness and action. Join SAFM as we bring you powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and voices that drive change all month long. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
And welcome back. So, Sonia Jackson-Miles, founder, president and CEO of the Sister Accord Foundation, launched the South African chapter in April 2024, and she returned to meet applicants face-to-face for the bursaries, business grants, honoring her commitments which were made in 2024. Sonia, welcome back.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, much better.
Okay, awesome. Well, yes, I'm so honored that I had the opportunity to deliver on a promise that I made in 2024. If you say that you love me, you have to show me. And so one of the things that we talk about with the Sister Accord is that we want 1 billion girls and women to learn how to love themselves and each other. And the way that we do that is we lead with love and kindness. And so We support each other. We take care of each other. We make sure that we uplift each other and speak life into each other. And another big part of that is how do we invest in each other? And that's what I was able to do and announce on this past Saturday at the Sanctuary Mandela, which is one of our partners.
And what are the pillars you decided to focus on?
So our three areas of focus is our education. Education saves lives, it changes lives. And so we give scholarships, enlightening girls and women of the power of sisterhood. So a lot of our teachings, a lot of our events, a lot of our seminars and webinars are actually giving those life skills and teaching how to love each other and how to support each other. And then the last pillar is eradicating bullying and violence against girls and women. And that's why I'm so grateful that so many men and boys are a part of the Sister Accord as well, because if we're truly going to eradicate violence against girls and women, boys and men have to be part of the conversation. So we're leaving no one behind with the work of the Sister Accord Foundation.
And what sort of lessons have you taken away from your experience of working with Fortune 500 companies, such as Ford Motor Company, Procter & Gamble, to working with active citizen organizations and the shifts needed in our communities?
Well, the big part for me, and I've been blessed to work for some amazing companies, as you just stated, is how do we serve the community while maximizing profits, while making sure that we have innovative and creative products that we sell to consumers. At the same time, we need to understand what are the priorities of the communities and the people that we are serving. And I think because I learned that at Ford, Gillette, and Procter & Gamble, I was then able to take that as I started my consultancy in 2013 when I left Procter & Gamble.
And as a CEO and founder, what are the qualities you believe are most essential when it comes to leadership and leading?
You have to see the people in your organization. And I'm saying, as I'm saying the word see, I have my fingers up in air quotes, because a lot of times we are not tapping into the essence and greatness of the people in our organizations. Our employees have all of these great qualities and gifts and talents that were planted inside of them as they were formed in their mother's womb. And I ask all of my corporate clients and everyone that I work with, are you tapping into the essence of people's greatness? Because when that is unleashed, all boats rise. Everyone can win. And so that's a big part of my leadership style, is making sure that I am engaging with folks and then leading with compassion and kindness. A lot of people think that kindness is weakness, but it takes a high level of emotional intelligence to be kind, right? Particularly when you are dealing with people who may not be so kind to you. It takes a lot of restraint. It takes a lot of engagement. And so I teach a lot around what that looks like. How does it look to be authentic in terms of who you really are, and bringing that to the table and flourishing in it and walking in purpose, on purpose.
And what are some of your long-term visions going forward? How would you what does a picture look like in when you expand?
Oh yeah, so we are the Sister Accord Africa launched in the middle of the global pandemic, if you can believe that. And we started 2 chapters in Zimbabwe, and so technology has been really key for us. Then we went to Malawi. We had a soft launch in Nigeria earlier this year, and we're going to have a hard launch next year in Nigeria. We got Ghana, and a number of other countries and partners have reached out. And so what it looks like is that we really do touch 1 billion with this message of self-love and self-care. because great leaders have great relationships. We focus a lot on relationships. So we've got to get to the billion. I know we'll go beyond the billion. And then the next thing that we will be launching is the Brother Accord. As I shared with you, boys and men are already a part of the Sister Accord. We are healing families, sister. This is what's so powerful about our work. People have told me I helped them to heal relationships with mothers and daughters and fathers, and I mean, just the whole family. And so when we come together on one accord, amazing things happen. Our families will be healed, our communities will be healed, our nations, the world, right? So this is all about putting a dent in the universe with love and making sure that people are operating in that thing that I talked about earlier. And then what I believe is that we won't see all the violence. We won't see all the hate because people will be operating in their gifts, and that will be able to enable them to live fulfilled lives and really not feel like they have to, harm another person in order to get ahead.
And then to shift mindsets must be a challenge. Any challenges that you faced during the inception and working through your work?
Oh, yes, sister. When I first started talking about this, people were looking at me like I had 3 heads, right? But I saw all of this in a dream. And I said, oh, Lord, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't want to quit my job and everything that I worked hard for. And God said, no, if you do what I'm asking you to do, I will add the resources. I will bring you and connect you with the right people. And so, yes, it was challenging initially, but we have such great momentum, and we have people who now, after, I left Procter & Gamble in 2013, we have the results, sister, and people are talking about the transformations that they have experienced as a result of our work. And so now more people want the same transformations for themselves. And so it's not as tough of a sell anymore because we have such great outcomes and results. But it was really challenging when I first started.
And any outstanding stories that you'd most probably like to share?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. One young lady in the U.S. came to our tea party that we had in Louisville, Kentucky, at the Muhammad Ali Center. She was getting into trouble. Her principal said she's hanging with the wrong people. Her mother, a single mom, lived in an impoverished community in Ohio, there in Cincinnati, where I live. And her principal brought her to the tea party in Louisville. And let's see, May 17th of this year, and I have goosebumps as I'm telling you this story. She just received her Juris Doctorate. She's going to be a lawyer. She just graduated with 2 degrees. She graduated from Ohio State University. She had all these leadership positions during college. People told her she would never be able to graduate from Ohio State University. She graduated with honors. And now she has her Juris Doctorate, law degree, and a master's degree. And this was someone, and she said it herself. Her name is Jada. Jada said, I was on my way to being a statistic, but you stepped in and plucked me out of that and told me that I could do anything that I put my mind to, and that all things were possible. And Miss Miles, now I am graduating with my Juris Doctorate. So I was able to go and see her receive her degree on May 17th of this year. So, I mean, I have so many amazing stories, but Jada's story, she's the daughter I never had because I have 2 sons. Jada's story gives me goosebumps every time I think about it.
And then lastly, any advice that you'd like to share with young ladies out there?
My advice, and I always say this, when I truly began to understand who I really was, when I took the time to look in the mirror and practiced self-affirmations. It gave me the ability to really step in and design what I call design my destiny, because it helped me to build my confidence and my courage. And so I talk often about the importance of confidence and building it, and the importance of courage, and the importance of learning how to communicate and advocate for yourself. So those 3 C's really made a difference for me. And if I had started doing these things when I was younger, I was joking with someone the other day. I said, I would have been running for president of the United States of America because that would have really helped me to go a lot farther faster. And that's why I'm so committed to taking this message to young girls. As early as the age of 4, the negative behavior begins to start among girls. And so I spend a lot of time with them to say, no, we are not going to live like that. The Sister Accord is a disruptor, and we are going to change the narrative and outcomes for girls and women, because we're going to learn how to support each other and not see each other as competition. And so I would just say to all the folks who are listening, please learn how to love yourself. And the reason why I say learn is because we're socialized oftentimes to not like ourselves, to not like each other, and we have to shut all that thinking down and retrain your brain. We can renew our minds every single day. So this renewed mindset that I talk about all the time is what's really important.
Thank you so much. Sonia Jackson Miles, founder, president, and CEO of the Sister Accord Foundation, sharing some insights. Thank you so very much. Have yourself a great one. And bye-bye for now. Well, that wraps up today's show. Thank you to my technical producer and my content producers. It's been fantastic. Let's do this sometime soon. Thank you, Bertha, and the team on the top stories. Disaster funds to be awarded to various municipalities, and Stellenbosch Choir wins big at the European Choir Games. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. 1.2 billion rand in disaster relief funds will be awarded to various municipalities across the country from July to August this year. The Eastern Cape province, which was severely impacted by the recent floods that claimed 103 lives, including school children, will receive the biggest allocation. The monies are being allocated in 3 phases. Briefing the media in Johannesburg, COGTA Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa warned against the misuse of the funds. He says a verification process will be done to ensure there are no price inflation.
There are municipalities even now who are struggling to pay salaries, and we will be observing them very closely that this money does not go to salaries. We have identified them as red flag municipalities. And maybe even before the 5th of August, we will invite the media in a joint meeting with premiers, with MECs, and all these municipalities who were given money last year, given money in March, given money now. And we want to be transparent.
ANC and EC member David Mahlobo says most ANC comrades who served with the former Deputy President David Mabuza are still reeling in shock over his passing. Mabuza died at the age of 64 in hospital last Thursday. Mahlobo has joined the Executive Council of the provincial government to pay homage to the Mabuza family. Mahlobo says they had hoped his health will fully recover.
Most of us are still reeling with shock. We never believed that this time will arrive at a time when all of us had hoped that Deputy President Mabuza was feeling much better. And it was all of a sudden. But we've come to terms now that he has played his part. We must allow him to rest. There are many memories that we are going to cherish. At an individual level, a number of us, when the ANC was unbanned.
The Department of Health in